This is the last talk of the day. Not much time left afterwards for the day. And I'm very happy to have a talk about PDF and about how well we can trust this thing that we all use probably on a daily basis. And Vladimir is a security expert and can us how secure they are, how secure we can trust them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, I'm Vladimir. Professionally, I'm a security engineer, but I do have to make the usual disclaimer that everything that I say and present here is mine and mine only. And indeed, so the opening statement would be like, PDF is the digital paper of our times. And metaphorically, I think this is quite true, yeah? Lots of transactions that we partake in our daily lives have some kind of PDF document attached to them. Contracts, invoices, certificates, medical records, letters, you name it, you got it. So far so good, but I think this kind of ubiquity also makes us maybe think a little bit about these PDF files that we are bombarded with, indeed as kind of pieces of physical paper, yeah, and that essentially means we have a good understanding of how a piece of paper behaves. If we have it in our possession and if we do not actively change it, then somehow we expect that that piece is inert and remains immutable in the way that we have received it. And that is an important property for all of the business that we do. So the only problem with that is that this is technically not true, yeah. And this is not a new discovery, right? This has been kind of more of an open secret, and one of the most impactful demonstrations of this thing is something like this here, yeah? So I don't know how many people have seen something like that. Not that many. So, okay. Yeah, so not my work, obviously, but people have understood for a while that you can take a wide range of software, compile it to JavaScript, embed it into your PDF document, and then when you open the document in your reader, you can play Doom without any add-ons or plugins or anything. Yeah? So this is inherent behavior of PDFs. The question for me now is, like, can this have security implications? So this is not just some kind of very cool magic, yeah, but can this actually have security implications for daily lives? And the answer is yes, it can, and we will get straight to that. So let me show you the first example. So this is a little price list that I have created. It looks like a usual price list. It's a PDF file that is on my hard drive. Yeah, it's you can see it's not. It's just a file on my disk. What I will do now is I will reload this document a couple of times, and I suggest that you focus on the last item, and in particular on the price that is attached to that. Yeah. So I will hit reload now. And maybe try it again. 15,840, and again 19,360, and so on. So we can see that this is a document that somehow changes important pieces of content without that we are actively doing anything. And indeed, I have to say, so there are no tricks or shenanigans of any kind going on. So there is no like server somewhere. Nobody is switching the file under us, anything. All the tricks are in the file itself. And so the way that works is, very roughly, we'll go into a bit more detail, is these things here, so the numbers that we are seeing here, they're actually, well, they are part of the document, but more importantly, they are part of a form. So PDF documents can have forms where you could enter information. These forms, as usual, consist of different fields. And here we have, in this case, like 3 fields. the thing is, these fields can be styled very freely. Yeah? So here we have taken some extra steps to style them in a way that you cannot actually, well, almost. It's very difficult to tell them from static, apart from static content. That's one thing. The other thing is that you can have JavaScript code actually attached to these forms and these fields. And typically you can either react to some events, like the user has entered something, let's validate what they entered, but you can also run that code on document startup. And this is already like more of a heavy thing. Yeah? And here indeed, so I have embedded a piece of JavaScript that ties that price for security consulting to the current timestamp. Yeah? So essentially, like as the seconds increase, that price will also increase. And I mean, how to abuse that, I think everybody understands. Yeah, we can send it to somebody, say, okay, this is my offer for this and that as a contract, and do you agree to that? Yes, and then sometime later, the price has increased, and you are telling the person, well, we always agreed on a higher price, like what's going on, and the person will be very surprised. So that's one thing that I wanted to show. I will show another one, but before we go there, I would like to take a step back and talk a little bit about the okay, so about the history of PDF security and security issues. Obviously, when we talk about security, just saying something is secure like makes no sense. Yeah, we need to say in which way it is secure, and there are different flavors. I'm not sure that this is maybe a complete enumeration, but this is like very roughly what my current understanding is. Also, this is maybe very roughly in kind of the chronological order of how these issues were discovered and dealt with. And the first one is about access to content. And I think that's like very early in the history of PDFs. People had this understanding, oh, it would be nice if I could give you a PDF file, but actually you would still not have access to content, and I would have to give you some kind of extra password or key or something that you can get access to that. And that is, well, done by encryption, and at the beginning there were some ridiculous encryption schemes, and like in the meantime we actually have like real orderly AES encryption and so on. So that is something that in some way protects the producer of the document. Another thing here in access is also, I think, relatively early on, what was part of the PDF specification is kind of a DRM, yeah, digital rights management. So where you could give somebody a document, but if they were looking at it in Adobe Acrobat, they, for example, couldn't print it or copy and paste content. I'm not going to comment on how much sense that makes, but that was somehow important for people or for some people back then. The first one. The second one is we are processing or viewing PDF documents from all kinds of untrusted sources, and our software that displays these things has to do a lot of work. So it has to parse lots of things like the PDF format itself. It has to parse images, fonts, JavaScript, compressed streams, lots of other things. So the attack surface of this software is huge, and it is typically written in some kind of not memory safe language. So obviously there was like a stream of buffer overflow attacks against common software. I think that has more or less subsided some time ago. I don't know if maybe people got a better grip on it, or maybe just Adobe Reader became kind of less popular, but that's it. Number 3, so something different now, and this is again from this department where we are protecting now actually the consumer of the PDF. Yeah, we are not protecting the producer. And this is access to the network and in general access to some other resources, for example, printers. Yeah, so there is actually scripting functionality in the PDFs. You can embed JavaScript that can, for example, print the file on your default printer. And clearly you do not really want to have for that to happen like without your approval. And also these files can, well, do some limited network connectivity, so they can, the intended functionality was that you can submit the forms that you have to some kind of remote server, and that is a poor man's HTTP client, so essentially you can do network access and network request, and that is also not a good idea without explicit user approval. And now, so now we are getting to our content here, and this is something else yet entirely, and this is also about protecting the consumer, and that is ideally we would like to protect the consumer against this kind of manipulative content that I have shown. And that manipulative content, I could come up kind of with two ways that it could manipulate the user, and one is we have already seen, yeah, so change the content of the very same file over time. And the other one is you have a document which is like exactly unchanged, but depending on who looks at it, they will see different things. And that is actually also an interesting security attack, because typically this falls under something called confused deputy attacks. I will explain that very briefly. So a confused deputy attack, that requires that happens between three people, not two, but three. So there is an attacker, there is a victim, and then there is a middleman that's called deputy here. And you can imagine that in the following way. So the attacker is interacting with the deputy, and for example, let's imagine I'm the attacker, yeah, and I'm selling some kind of goods or services to some kind of large organization, a company or somebody. And I would typically have a contact person in that organization that is somehow my direct partner, yeah? So that deputy there is the consumer of whatever I'm providing, the service or the goods and so on. And at some point after providing the service or shipping the goods, I would typically send them an invoice and say, okay, so I have provided you security for consulting for €1,000. Can you please approve that, because you are the one who has consumed that, and then send it on to somebody else, and in that case it's the victim, and the victim would be something like the financial department or somebody who actually has the power to release money. And that person, that deputy would look at the invoice and say, okay, yeah, it says €1,000, you delivered what you promised, and yeah, I approve. So they would forward it to the victim, the financial department, say, I approve. And when the person there looks at the document, it no longer says €1,000, it says maybe 10,000, or maybe the recipient is now completely different. Or essentially, we have lots of freedom there. So that is clearly not a good security situation. Now I would like to show you how that works in practice, but I have the problem here that I'm just one person, yeah? So that's like two people short of a threesome, yeah? So I will just try to make it plausible. And this is now a different document here. That looks actually also like a pretty regular PDF document, but the important part here is that this whole document is actually a form field, and all the text that you see here, like all of it, is created by a JavaScript program when you open the document. So it's not static in any way, it's actually completely generated inside your viewer when you open it. And you can see that there are actually some very interesting things that the script can do and has access to interesting APIs. So first of all, it has access to the real-time clock, you can see. So that's the basis for this first demonstration that I have shown. But there is more to it. So the clock is actually a bit kind of more dangerous thing or more powerful thing, because, well, first of all, you can see here that part of this string representation is localized. Yeah, so you can already kind of you can draw conclusions about the language of the user who is looking at this thing. Yeah, so we are trying actually to kind of fingerprint the user and to identify who is looking at this document. We have a few more APIs, so we can get the vlkl. Also from the real-time clock, we can get the time zone, yeah, which for like multinational organization also will often allow you to discriminate between different people, different departments, things like that. There are other like APIs that are only implemented in Adobe Acrobat, so you could enumerate like printers, the monitors, things like that. And one of the most juicy parts is actually this here. So I don't know, yeah. So there it says username guess, and this is like directly typically the username that the viewer has on the system, and you can ask, well, how do we get that? And the next line is actually the answer. Yeah. So the document has access to the location of itself. And the way our operating system works is that our documents on disk are often stored in some kind of directory that in the path has a reference to our own username. And once you have that, like, you can perfectly distinguish between different people who are looking at that, and you can serve to them completely different content. So that's the foundation for the second part of the attack. All right, so I'm going back to my slides. No, that's the wrong thing. This one. Okay, so okay, I just explained how that works. So APIs and so on. Very incomplete list of kind of which software allows this kind of tricks and which doesn't, and mostly like this middle section mostly just doesn't have JavaScript implemented, so that's what keeps you safe. And we'll look a little bit or talk a bit more closely now about the first and the last on that list. So Chrome, or the PDF viewer that is in it, is obviously very popular, and I thought, okay, let's ask Google what they think about that situation. And here Google was very efficient. Within 24 hours, they have closed my ticket and said, works as intended, see FAQ. Yeah, and I mean, at that stage, you could say maybe you are right, because, well, it is really not a bug in Chrome. This is just the specification of PDFs being broken. But again, the consequence is still debatable. But if we look actually at this FAQ, I just presented for you. So it says, does executing JavaScript in a PDF file mean there is an XSS vulnerability, cross-site scripting? Spoiler alert, this is nothing like an XSS, yeah? So, and then they go on, proceed to answer no, and PDF files have the ability to run JavaScript, usually to facilitate field validation during form fill out. Yeah, so far so good. The word usually like does a lot of heavy lifting here. And then they say no, that the set of bindings provided to the PDF are more limited than those provided by the DOM to HTML documents. This is a bit weird, because these are like completely different things. Yeah, is the chair more powerful than the table? I don't know. And also they stress that like if that PDF was to do a network request, it would not be able to send user cookies with the request. And we can see this is actually more or less completely relevant to the problem that we are looking at. Yeah. So the only relevance is maybe that JavaScript is common to both, but the attacks that I have shown, they do not require the network at all. Yeah. That's okay. So yeah, and I tried to clarify, but they didn't respond to any further request. Yeah, I would say, okay, mistakes can always happen, but if you are kind of organizing your communication in a way that error correction is just not possible from the outset, then maybe you're not organizing in a great way. Okay, we'll skip that part. And so, yeah, another example. So this is now a different strategy for dealing with the problem, and this is from Adobe Acrobat. If you try to open a document that has JavaScript embedded, you will get this warning, and yeah, JavaScript is disabled, and this document uses for some features. Enabling JavaScript can lead to potential security issues. So very generic, very unclear, and the options. So if you click on options, you have the options like execute JavaScript in this document once, or execute it always for this document. Is it better than nothing? I would say probably, but of course you could still argue that like a user in their daily life has no way to somehow judge the security risk and what understands from what this entails from that alone. So that is also not a great thing. Also, how much time do we? Not much. Okay. So just very briefly, this is also let's do this. So this is the same document that I have shown before. Now in Adobe Acrobat, yeah, and it has this warning banner at the top. But as an attacker, you still have control over what is shown without JavaScript. So you can do all the usual social engineering to try to kind of coerce the user into enabling JavaScript. So altogether, not a great situation. And yeah, the question is now what unfortunately, kind of the main thing is that there is no silver bullet. Yeah, you can try probably to do different things as a vendor of the software. I don't know, warnings. Not even sure what to do. Yeah, you could of course rip out certain APIs, so you could disable JavaScript altogether. Easy to say, maybe less easy if you get then angry emails from users who say, we have this workflow here for 30 years and it's no longer working, how dare you? But on the other hand, I mean, the diversity of this PDF software is so large that, and they all differ in different ways and do not support like different features, so maybe. As a user, especially if you're using Acrobat, you can pay attention to that security warning. If you're using something like Chrome or any other derivatives, very difficult. You could try to see are these like fields that I'm looking at. Sometimes you would get some indication, like a weird font or something, but difficult. So the only optimistic message I have now to finish that is that somehow the order and the functioning of our society is not necessarily based completely on the immutability of PDF documents, right? We often have in our life this kind of security mechanisms that are imperfect. You can forge signatures on paper, yeah, that is possible. Your apartment lock can be picked. These bands are not foolproof, so often these things are kind of just lubricants to make things go smoother, but ultimately the important thing is what is the risk for the attacker of being caught, and will they actually face a punishment if so. So you need to judge the overall context, like how big is the chance that you can I don't know, send the police to the home of whoever has created this PDF that you're looking at. Yeah, that's the criterion for dealing with these things. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Vladimir. There's no time left for questions while we are recording, but maybe you're here and it's the last talk, so we have some time afterwards for clearing the room.
Would be happy to. You can look at that repository, so it has the materials. You can download things and play with them. And
then when you leave, please take your trash with you and enjoy the evening and tomorrow, and yeah.